Welcome to the Stoic Responder Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Healy. As a special agent who spent more than 15 years conducting large-scale fraud, money laundering, and public corruption investigations, Stoic philosophy provided a mindset edge that became the foundation of my professional success. My mission today is to share those same ancient mindset lessons with you so that you can turn obstacles into opportunities and adversity into advantage. Time to muster up. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Stoic Responder Podcast. This is episode 56, Why So Serious? Folks, before we get into the meat of the episode, let me tell you about my friends over at the Overwatch Collective. The Overwatch Collective is a nonprofit and podcast funding therapy sessions and supporting mental health initiatives for our first responders, our veterans, and their families. The motto over there is one more is one less, and I take that to heart because one more individual we can provide life-saving therapy services to is one less potential statistic. Guys, we all know that about 184 law enforcement officers a year are the victims of suicide. The goal over at the Overwatch Collective is to make sure that anyone who wants it has the ability to get life-saving therapy services so they can become one less statistic. Please check them out, make a donation, buy some gear over at the Overwatch Collective.com. Number two, I want to give a shout out to Blue Badge Coffee Company. Mission over at Blue Badge Coffee is to provide customers with the absolute best, highest quality premium coffee that their money can buy. But Blue Badge takes a portion of each sale and donates to law enforcement agencies around our great nation to assist them in funding and maintaining peer support and wellness programs for their officers. These programs are critical and crucial for the physical and mental well-being of hardworking officers and the law enforcement agencies across our country. This is especially true right now when we are dealing with a retention and recruitment crisis in the law enforcement community. Peer support and wellness programs are doing a ton to keep our hardworking officers on duty to help them become more resilient, and we deeply appreciate Blue Badge Coffee Company for helping to fund those wellness and peer support programs. You can join their efforts by checking them out at bluebadgecoffee.com. You can check out some of their great premium roasts or get yourself some gear like the hat that I'm wearing right now. All right, guys, as I said, the title of this episode is Why So Serious? Let me start you out with a quote from Epictetus. He who laughs at himself never runs out of things to laugh at. All right, yesterday we talked about the corrosive impact of hatred on our soul and how hating others is actually more deeply impactful to ourselves than it is to the people that we direct that hatred to. Well, let's talk about laughter today. Let's talk about the other side of the coin. So obviously, if you caught the reference here, the title is called Why So Serious? It's a reference to one of the most iconic lines in the 2008 film, The Dark Knight. It's delivered by Heath Ledger's Joker to a room full of gangsters. With his face painted, white makeup, his lips are colored red. He's got that grotesque smile. Just an incredible performance, right? I think he posthumously won the Oscar for that performance. Just an incredible performance. But the Joker is interrogating one of these mobsters, right? And they're questioning him about his motives and his intentions. And he looks at one of the guys and he taunts him. I'm not going to do the impression, but he looks at the guy and goes, "Why so serious?" And it's kind of blithely sort of highlighting the futility of trying to impose order and control in this world that he believes is governed by chaos and chance, right? He's this just kind of chaos agent. And he's kind of like, why are you trying to impose order on me? Do I look like, I think one of the other lines in that scene is, do I look like a guy who has a plan? It's just incredible. He's got the jacket with the grenades in it. He kind of opens it up. He's like, do I look like a guy who's got a plan, right? Well, take what you will from that movie. It's an incredible movie, but we operate in a similarly chaotic world as law enforcement officers, as the Joker is describing with his actions, right? And we're working hard to impose order on it as best as we can. And there's people out there who are chaos agents. And that creates a high-stress environment for us. And in this high-stress environment, humor can serve as a coping mechanism. For processing difficult emotions, for maintaining morale, for forging bonds with our colleagues. I mean, some of the most hilarious things that cops joke about would be horrifying to 99.9% of the public. And every one of you who's listening to this, who's ever worn a uniform, ever worn a badge, who's ever been at a crime scene, who's ever dealt with something completely screwed up, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like we get through those sort of things with humor. And to most of the population that look at that and say that's horrifying. That's terrible. But in the face of adversity, in the face of danger, laughter for us can become a powerful tool for gaining resilience. It's an adaptation, in other words, right? And it enables us to find light amidst all of this horrible darkness. It allows us to find a little bit of joy among the sorrow, a little bit of strength amidst the vulnerability. I've been on some horrible crime scenes. I've dealt with some terrible things. I've recovered a kidnapped girl who was the victim of sexual assault and had been bound and gagged and held against her will. And I've dealt with dead bodies. I've found we've I'm not even going to get into it because it's not the time or the place, but some of the most horrible things that you see and deal with on a daily basis can have a deeply corrosive impact and effect on us if we don't do something to maintain that inner citadel, if we don't do something to maintain that comedy, not comedy, E-D-Y, but comedy, I-T-Y, that collegial attitude towards our fellow travelers, towards the other law enforcement officers. And that's where laughter can be that powerful tool that can help us become more resilient, that can help us find light amidst that darkness. Look, so much is outside of our control, both on the job and off the job. One thing that is in our control is the ability to see the humor and the absurdity of all of it. And it's through that lens of laughter that we gain perspective, we gain some solace in the recognition that life is often as absurd as it is beautiful. It's often as unpredictable as it is profound. And we see both sides of it on a daily basis. So what I want you to do today is I want you to take out your journal. I want you to take out your pencil. I want you to write this down and ask yourself this. Where am I taking myself too seriously? Now, the reason I want you to ask yourself this is because it's easy for us to engage in that gallows humor, that graveyard humor on the job. It's easy for us to kind of use that as that armor, right? To kind of see the lens a little bit differently so that we can get through the day. But we don't often take that same attitude, that same sort of making lightness out of the darkness in our lives into our personal lives. We leave it at work. I want you to focus specifically on where in your life, outside of the office, if you can, where are you taking yourself too seriously? And how can you eject a little bit of lightness into that darkness? How can you find some joy amidst that sorrow? How can you find a little bit of strength amidst that vulnerability? I think it would be helpful. So that's what I got for you today. We got one more episode this week coming up on Friday. And as I said, I may have a bonus episode coming out this week. I've had a lot of people ask me, because it's an election year, where would the Stoics be politically? And I think that's hard to say. So what I was going to do is I was just going to kind of put together where I stand as a Stoic and why I feel the way I do. And, not necessarily on candidates, I don't care about that, but on issues, on where I see Stoic virtues and where I can see kind of the issues that we deal with in a political sense, where I can see the Stoic virtues being applied there. So that may be this week, maybe next week. I'm kind of working it through because I want to make it like thoughtful and not just be like out here rambling about, my, not trying to buttonhole or fit my personal policy preferences into a Stoic lens, but really trying to sit back and see it from an objective perspective. So there may be a bonus episode this week if I get to it. If not, that may be coming out in the weeks ahead, but certainly sometime between now and the election, I'm going to put that out there because I think it's important to kind of have that perspective and to try to see things from that Stoic perspective. There's a lot of politicians who consider themselves Stoics, and I think you could see them on both sides of the aisle. But there's not a lot of people who are like Marcus Aurelius, who are like the emperor, the philosopher king, the philosopher emperor. I think the closest that I can think of, without going too deep into the research, is Calvin Coolidge, kind of having that same sort of very performatively anyway, he came across very stoic. And that's about the only one that I can really think of. But I'm going to do a little bit more research on that and try to put something together because some people have been asking for my thoughts on that. And I think it's an interesting topic to tackle in an election year. So a couple of ways that you can support the podcast if you would like to do so. Number one, pick up a copy of my book, In Valor, 365 Stoic Meditations for First Responders. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, anywhere you get your books. You can get it on Kindle, Nook for instant download right now, or you can get the paperback edition, which is available as well. It's about 400 pages. It's a girthy boy. It is wonderful. I love it. I like to take notes in it. I like to highlight it. Even though I wrote it, I still get something from it every time I pick it up. It's going to be a great way for you to practice this philosophy daily. It's going to give you some quotes, some contextualization that's directly relatable to your job. It's going to give you these same daily journal prompts or different journal prompts and action prompts to help you integrate these lessons in the same way that we do on the podcast. Number 2, you can subscribe to the Substack. That's going to be over at thestoicresponder.substack.com. Totally free. You'll get all 4 podcast episodes delivered to your email every week. Plus, you'll get my weekly newsletter. And finally, the easiest way for you to support this podcast is to like, share, and subscribe wherever you're listening so that others can learn more about this philosophy and how it can help them as well. Folks, we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, you are out of roll. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, like, rate, and share this podcast so that we can spread the benefits of Stoicism to other first responders. It will only take you a few moments, but it can help us tremendously. Until next time, out of roll.